Hi, this is Tracy DeMario, an independent SCENTSY Superstar Director. I'm really excited to do this call tonight, and I hope that it's very beneficial for most of you. We're going to be covering how to do SCENTSY events, and we're going to cover very basic information, and those are for you that are going to be doing larger shows. Hopefully that's going to be helpful to you as well. So let's go ahead and get started with this. First of all, people commonly ask, where do we start? Well, there's a variety of places. The Internet is going to be your best friend with this. I highly recommend you get on the Internet and start Googling. I can tell you that a couple of years ago when we decided to do events, my husband spent a lot of time doing research to locate these events. Some of the sites that he used were Missouri Fairs and Festivals, because we happen to be located in Missouri, craftmasternews.com, Event Lister, and then one of the other things he did was he got a map out and basically determined how far we were willing to go to do events, and contacted the local Chamber of Commerce to ask them what kind of events they had in their community. A couple of other avenues that we have taken as well is contacting local churches and schools to see who might be renting out their facilities to do different craft fairs, maybe some different fundraising events, and so forth. So those are some great avenues to get started. Next is, how do I register for the show? And this is a very critical component here. You want to be sure you get this right. First of all, per corporate policy and procedures, we're only allowed to have one SCENTSY consultant per event. So it's very important when you're making these calls that you ask, do you have a SCENTSY consultant? If the answer is yes, you hang up and you find somewhere else to go. If the answer is no, then you want to make sure you get the information so you can become the SCENTSY consultant for that event. But be sure to mention to the promoter, that is our company policy, and we are only allowed to have one consultant per event. If you'll look under the Resources tab of your workstation, you will see that there is an event coordinator letter that you can include when you submit your vendor packet. Again, it's a good idea to just be sure and over-exaggerate this. As promoters, they don't have to follow corporate policy. However, you want to be sure that you do everything properly, so should you show up at an event and there are two consultants, you can be sure that you've done everything properly and will be the one to stay. When you register as a consultant, you're going to get an application from the vendor or from the different fair or festival, and it's going to say name. On that blank, be sure you register as SCENTSY Independent Consultant / your name. So you don't want to just put your name there and then under business name later down on the form put SCENTSY Independent Consultant. Oftentimes, promoters will list everyone by the name. So, for example, if I were to call and ask, do you have a SCENTSY consultant, and they happened to look through the list and all they saw was a Tracy DeMario, they would tell me no, when in reality there was a SCENTSY consultant, but that SCENTSY consultant did not fill out the form properly. So be certain that you put SCENTSY Independent Consultant / your name. And you must apply payment to secure the space. If you have not paid and you've just called them and told them you want to do it, and another consultant comes in and they secure payment, then they actually are the consultant that would be, per policies and procedures, allowed to stay. Another thing that comes up often is insurance and sales tax. When you're doing some of the larger fairs and festivals, they will require liability insurance. To find out more information about liability insurance, a couple of options for you would be, number one, contact your insurance agent. I personally in the past have used my insurance agent who does all my homeowners and my car insurance, and he was able to get me a very reasonable rate. Another option is to contact pro4us.com. They're happen to be located in Overland Park, Kansas, and their costs are very reasonable. SCENTSY Select has some additional insurance options for you. On your workstation, just click on the SCENTSY Select tab, and they have a preferred vendor that you can also get quotes from. And this is not necessary for many small events such as church events or school events. However, if you're going to start doing some of the really large fairs and festivals, it's not uncommon for them to require this. Also, some events are going to require our SCENTSY's retail sales tax number. Each state has a different number. I happen to have Missouri's because that's where I most commonly do my events. If you happen to be at an event in day 1 or day 2 or day 3, someone comes around from the Department of Revenue and says they'll be collecting the taxes from you on Friday or whatever time. At that time, you can let them know that you're a direct selling company and that your corporation pays all of the taxes into the state, and you'd be happy to supply them with the sales tax number. You will need to email support@SCENTSY.com or contact customer support to get that information if it's a state other than Missouri. Here are some different pictures. I'm going to share some different images of some different events just to give you some ideas on how you can possibly set up your events. What you will see here is, number one, this is what I put my testers on. Since they changed the style of the new party testers, I found that by just having them on the table makes it a lot easier for people to walk off with them. Sometimes they often think they're free samples. And therefore, I just went to Bed Bath & Beyond, purchased these spice racks for, I believe, approximately $9, and I placed my testers on those. I'll typically have the booth like this is a 10 by 20 space, so a lot of times I will have 3 different sets of these out on the table for people to sample the different scents. Another thing that I do is I only put out the testers of the bars that I have in stock. Depending on the size of the event, I typically carry around 40 to 50 different scents, so I do not have all 80 at any event, and I would only put those testers out. So again, that's totally optional to you. I keep the other testers under the table in the event someone comes up to me and specifically asks for something that I don't have in stock. I will still let them, sample it and just let them know I'd be happy to order it for them, or they can take something that I have and remember that for the next time when they place their reorder. Another thing I would like to point out here in the display, you'll see on the back here is where I keep my plug-ins. I always like to keep my plug-ins as an afterthought. My primary purpose is to push the full-size warmers and candle bars and then add on the plug-ins. So that's why you're always going to find mine on display in the back. Here's just another picture, and again, you can purchase this plug-in bar. They're available at the Lowe's hardware stores, possibly some other places as well. That's just where we happen to purchase it. And this black stuff in the back is called grid wall, and these are hooks, which I will tell you here in a minute. I'll give you the information on where you can locate that if that's something you're interested in. This is just another angle of how we had it set up. This is an outdoor event. Obviously, you can probably tell that. But once again, I've got my plug-in bars back here. I put my buddies back there out of the way so the kids can't touch them and get them all nasty. And this works out really nice. I prefer a closed booth. And what that means is my tables are always in front. I'm always standing here between me and my product. Again, I've tried it both ways, and I feel like this is the best for both my customers and for my sake. You're going to have to just try and see which works best for you. There's no right or wrong way. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. This is an absolute must. Anytime you're doing an event, I highly recommend you to put together a join box. Whenever you have this available, you will definitely see there will spark a lot of interest. You'll need to be ready to discuss recruiting and have your recruiting packets with you. I like to keep it right close to my $99 banner because, again, it's really bold. It gets people's attention. And then everything in this box is what they would get in their kit. And this is an empty box for a warmer. My original tester box that I have, the binder happens to be empty. You don't have to put a full package of catalogs and order forms, but even if you just have one and laminate it, which is what I did, and then I just tell people. And this way they can truly see the value. It's so simple at an event to offer the business opportunity. So many times people are ready to spend $40, $50, $75 with me in product, and it's very easy for me to say, you know, you're about to give me $50 for this product, and I would be so happy to be your consultant. But if you've given any thought to becoming a SCENTSY consultant, let me show you what's included in the kit for $99. And I continue to list everything, you know, obviously the full-size warmer, a candle bar, a room spray, a scent circle, the SCENTSY Buddy. And they definitely get the idea that it's such a great value. And many, many more people like the visual of seeing what all's included in it. So consider putting something together, and you can certainly dress it up a lot more than we have it here. I've seen people wrap the boxes, put big gift bows on it, and have some fun with it. These are just some other displays. This happens to be an open display where obviously customers can walk in and out and kind of help themselves. And again, you may want to try that and you may prefer it. That's totally up to you. You'll find what works best for you. This is a very small space. This is an 8 by 10 space that we had. And so we just did our best to maximize that. I do keep it very simple. As you can see, I've just got warmers stacked on top of the boxes. I don't really get into the whole foo-foo. I want people to focus on the warmers themselves and not on how pretty the table is. So that's just something we have found to be very helpful, and that's just what we've chosen to do. Where do I get the grid wall and the hooks? Well, I happen to go to Casey's store fixture. You can purchase online, or they're located in Kansas City, Missouri, depending on your location. I've included the number and the address here for you. I use the 6-foot grid wall with feet, which is 2 by 6, but they have 5-foot grid wall and other sizes as well, and you can access all of that on their website. The hooks come in 2, 4, 6, and actually I believe it's even 7 inches. I use the 6 inches, which holds 5 bars. Some people prefer the next size up, which will hold 7 bars. Again, it's just a matter of your personal preference. They have different shelves, lots of sign holders, display items, very reasonably priced. So I would definitely consider pricing them when you're looking at some different options for displaying your product. Credit card processing, there's a couple different options. Well, actually, there's many, but these are 2 that I have both used and been very happy with. For those of you that are doing your smaller shows, by far the simplest is going to be squareup.com. This device, which you'll see pictured here, works on your iPhone or your Android phone. It is a completely free swiper. There's no monthly fees. There's no transaction fees. And you pay a little under 3% per transaction. So it's very reasonable, and I highly recommend you getting something so you can get an instant approval whenever you're doing an event. It would only take 1, 2, 3 times of people walking off with product, $25, $40, $75 worth of product, and getting their credit cards not going through and not being able to get in touch with them. It's definitely worth the effort of getting one of these. The other option, if you're going to be doing very large shows and be going through a lot of product, this is another option that I use. There are monthly fees. If you have a Costco executive membership, it's considerably less. I pay approximately $20 per month. And I did have to purchase my original swiper, which was $79. I use it with my netbook, and you would have to have internet access to use that. So again, it really is just going to depend on your preference. What do I need to take to events? And I've learned most of this the hard way by forgetting a lot of it. So I've kind of kept this here, and this is something that you can check out. It would be ideal to create a spreadsheet, and then every time you do an event, just kind of check it out and make sure that you check off everything. If you're doing an indoor event, I would highly recommend just getting some sheets to cover your display if it's a multi-day event, so that things are covered up when you leave. Another thing I like to do is I like to use clipboards to put my order forms on so that I can hand them over to my guests to fill out the top portion and to sign. So that's just another little thing that I use as well. The rest is probably pretty obvious on what you would need. Here's some additional things that I highly recommend having on hand. I can tell you duct tape, Sharpies, and zip ties are a must. You may not think so now, but I assure you they can work miracles when you're at an event. I can't tell you how many times they've come in handy, so I highly recommend you including those in your event kit. Your calendar, absolutely have your calendar so you can book those parties when the opportunity presents itself. Your scent samples, of course, those are great to get people's attention. Everybody's all about getting something for free, and it really gives you the opportunity to get them over to your table so that you can talk to them. If you're doing an outdoor event, I would highly recommend a tent with sides. I prefer the Easy Up brand. We have had multiple tents, and by far, those have been the best quality tents. I know you can purchase them here in Missouri at the Sam's Club for approximately $195. That includes the case, the sides, everything you need for your tent and setup. You're going to need cinder blocks or some type of weights to hold down your tent. If it's going to be during the hotter months, you definitely want to invest in a good quality cooler with dry ice or regular ice to keep your bars cool. I also like to keep mini catalogs and the fundraising slicks on hand. I do that because so often people will come by and ask, can I have a catalog? Do you have a catalog? And the reality is many of them will ask. Very few of them will ever contact me to make a purchase. Therefore, I will hand out the mini catalog or the fundraising slick and say, here you go, all of our contact information is on here. On the back side of the mini catalog, it lists all of the scents we have in stock. or you can go on my website and you can view the entire catalog. So that's how I present it, and that way it costs me pennies to hand those out, and I'm not going through all my catalogs. If you are doing an event with another consultant, be sure you have lots of discussion and conversations ahead of time on how you're going to handle it. I highly recommend, whenever possible, splitting a booth, that you do just that. Everything would be split 50-50, from the amount of product that you bring, from the amount of money that you each contribute to the money bag, splitting the fees, splitting the leads. I believe it will work out the best for everyone in the end if that's at all possible. You also want to discuss what all you're going to be handing out. For example, if I'm handing out mini catalogs and you're handing out teasers, oftentimes people will want one of each because it looks like it's something different. Same with scent samples. If you can be consistent even on the scent samples you hand out, it will be much more effective, because if you've got different scent samples, people will come back and ask for one of each. And obviously that defeats the whole purpose of each of you getting equal opportunity to get your product in the hands of different people. The recruiting packets, this is an absolute. You do not do an event without recruiting packets, and you never want to not have them. So make up a bunch of them. In mine, I include a catalog, the personalized distributor's wanted booklet, a join brochure, a business card, which I staple my scent samples on, and a Discover SCENTSY DVD. This is optional. You can create your own recruiting packet. Just have something put together. I happen to use the catalog bags that you can purchase on SCENTSY Success under bags, because they're very inexpensive and it looks really nice put together. Oftentimes I will also include a discontinued mini tester as well. And my reason for that is hopefully they're going to go home and they're going to call me and to join, and that's when I can tell them, you know that little mini tester that I included in your recruiting packet? You can actually purchase a full set of those for $25, and it's a great enhancement to your kit. And they can see the size of them, and they can get a better idea as to what they are. As well as they can take the lid off of those, turn them upside down in a plug-in or a warmer, and they can enjoy the scent. Fundraising packets, again, this is a great opportunity for people to ask you about fundraising. So you want to be sure you have the packets right there. And I include a catalog or a copy of the fundraising slick. It's up to you, whichever you want to use. A letter introducing what a SCENTSY fundraiser is, a business card, and a scent sample. And again, you can make this as you go. There's no right or wrong way. These are just some ideas and suggestions. And again, probably obvious, a hostess packet. You will have many opportunities to book both bag parties and home parties on the spot when you're doing an event. So be prepared, have what you need. This happens to be what I include in my host packet. Just some tips. These are some things that I have found to be helpful, one of which is some of the scents that I highly recommend warming because I have had great response from: Clove and Cinnamon, Autumn Sunset, Black Raspberry Vanilla, Sugar Cookie, and Welcome Home are all excellent scents to warm. And I do highly recommend, if you're warming whatever scent you decide to warm, be sure you have multiples of that scent, because odds are whatever you're warming is what you're going to sell the most of. So be sure that you bring additionals of those. Also, just to make your booth look nice and to help people think about purchasing SCENTSY, seasonal gift bags and signs. It's ideal if places will let you use balloons. It's great for Valentine's Day, for Mother's Day, around the holidays. Whatever you can do to generate people thinking about purchasing SCENTSY is a great way to draw attention to your booth. Some additional tips, if at all possible, always try to avoid being next to a food vendor. It just really makes it difficult for anyone to really appreciate the benefits of SCENTSY when you're next to the funnel cakes, when all they can smell is the funnel cakes, or the fried pickles, better yet. So if it's possible, ask the promoter where you're going to be located, and or if you can be in an area away from the food vendors. With every purchase, I happen to give a catalog. It's totally up to you, but if they purchase from me, I do include a catalog. What I have found to be true is that oftentimes people will go home with their product, they will be enjoying it so much, and they happen to have that catalog, and they will either call me or go online to make additional purchases. So I want to make it as easy as possible for them to do so. Absolutely, definitely present the business opportunity to everyone. You definitely want to take advantage of the time and the money you've invested to cover your expenses for this event. So don't ever assume that someone would or would not want to know about SCENTSY. Just tell everyone about the opportunity. Engage in conversations when people are at your booth. Are you familiar with SCENTSY? What type of scents do you like? Do you work outside the home? Does your husband work outside the home? Do you travel often? You know, just whatever you can think of to use that information to help them see how they can also sell SCENTSY and have fun with SCENTSY, whether it's for a hobby or whether or not they're looking for a business opportunity. You know, anyone, young, old, male, female, no one is excluded from the opportunity of selling SCENTSY. So be sure you're sharing that opportunity. Another idea is vendor discounts or coupons. I know oftentimes vendors, you can take these, you can make these up. They can be something as simple as you run off your coffee machine with your contact information. You can include a scent sample with it. You can tell them, you know, vendors don't pay tax when you make a purchase at my booth. You can say a free scent circle for a $50 order. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do, but vendors typically want to support vendors. And therefore, it's a great idea to find something to draw them over to your booth. And another thing I like to share is the difference between door prize slips and order forms. I no longer put a door prize box, a drawing box, on my table. I did in the beginning, and I don't do that now. Again, this is just some information. You need to find your system and stick with your system. But what I found is when I had that on my table, oftentimes people would fill it out, but they just put their name and their phone number, or maybe their name and their email. I was not getting a lot of information. I was getting duplicate entries. You know, kids were coming up and putting a ton of them in there, and it just really was not fulfilling my hopes. So I've tried a couple different options. Depending on the size of the show and the traffic, I do one of two things. Option one is I actually put the door prize slips on my table, the pads on the table with pins. So when people are at my table, oftentimes they'll say, oh, are you giving something away, or, you know, is there a prize? And I'll say, yes, I'm giving away a candle bar and a plug-in. Please fill that out. And be sure to include your email address, because I'm going to be doing a once-a-month special newsletter where you can find out what discounts we have going on for the month. And by telling them that, they're much more likely to fill that part out. Also, while they're filling out the slip, it gives me an opportunity, again, to engage in conversation. Do you have a SCENTSY warmer? Did you see something here at the table that you liked? They might say, oh, yeah, but I don't get paid till Friday. Oh, I totally understand that. How about if I make a note and I give you a call next week and we can get you taken care of? Or better yet, what if you could get your warmer for free and didn't have to pay for it? So again, because they have already initiated conversation with me and I'm getting information from them, it's going to give me a lot better opportunity to have conversation. Once I collect them, they're going to hand me their door prize slip. And once they leave, if I touched on the join or hosting a party and I had any kind of a hint that there was an interest, on the back I'll write J for join or P for party. And that indicates to me when I'm making my follow-up calls that I've already touched on it and I just want to bring it up again. The other option would be order forms. Instead of the door prizes, because maybe you're going to be too busy and you know you're just not going to be able to make that happen, as I am checking customers out, I will hand them my clipboard with the order form on it and ask them to complete the top section of the order form, including their email address. Again, I tell them for the same purpose, because I'm going to be sending a once-a-month special with via email, and I want to be sure that you're included in it. And when I ask for the information, 9 times out of 10, people are more than happy to fill it out. Occasionally, they'll say, oh, I don't do email. I'll say, oh, no problem, that's fine. But most of the time, they're filling out that form. And then as well as you can get their signature if it happens to be a credit card purchase. So those are just a couple of reasons why that I've chosen to do that, and it's worked out really well for me. A couple of other things that I just wanted to cover, some of which may seem very obvious, but in the event you haven't done a lot of events, I wanted to kind of share this with you. Some of the things that I found to be helpful is obviously, number one, telling them, you know, there's no flame. I actually hold up and display one of the 25-watt appliance bulbs. Oftentimes people will be walking by my booth and I'll say, oh, are you familiar with SCENTSY? And they will say, oh, yeah, yes. And I'll say, oh, so you know it's a 25-watt appliance bulb, and I have that in my hand. And many, many times people will say, oh, no, I thought it was one of those tea light things. And next thing I know, they're walking over to my table to check it out. So I highly recommend you doing that. Secondly, have some large jar candles at your booth, behind your booth, so that when you're talking to people about the bars, you can demonstrate. For example, I would be holding up a candle bar in one hand and a good quality like a Yankee or similar candle in the other hand. And I would say, Our candle bars, each cube, lasts 10 to 12 hours, or this whole package lasts the same as this large jar candle. Only like this jar candle that you spend $15 to $25 on, you're now going to spend $5 on a SCENTSY candle bar. And better yet, see all this soot that's built up around this candle? Well, guess what? With SCENTSY, there's no soot, there's no wax deposited into the air. You're not going to be breathing it. It's always going to stay clean. It's a much safer, cleaner, and less expensive alternative. And people like the visual. It really does help them. Another thing, obviously, is the heat of the wax. I always am quick to say, you know, one of the great things about SCENTSY is the wax gets a little bit warmer than body temperature, so should children or pets touch it, it's not going to burn them. I already touched on the soot and cleaner than candles. Another great thing to tell them is people will commonly say, well, is your wax soy? What is your wax? The simplest answer is this. It's a food-grade production wax, the same type of wax you find on the outside of your apples in your grocery store. And then we infuse it with fragrance oil. So it's much easier to clean up than a traditional hard candle wax. One of the greatest things about SCENTSY products is the fact that they're very safe. You can leave ours on 24/7. All of the electrical components of the SCENTSY warmer are all UL approved, and therefore they've met the highest safety standards in the United States. And the obvious is they make great gifts, so you definitely want to say, hey, you know, this is something that you can get. You can keep an extra one on hand for a wedding gift, a baby gift, and so forth. People will commonly come up and say, hey, how much are your bars, or how much are your candle bars? My response is always 3 for $14 or 6 for $25. And the reason I say 3 for $14 or 6 for $25 is psychologically, for whatever reason, when you pitch it at 3 or a 6-pack, 9 times out of 10 they will buy a 3 or a 6-pack. Occasionally someone will say, oh, well, can I just buy one, or how much is one? And then I'll say $5. But I believe if you get in the habit of automatically saying 3 for $14 or 6 for $25, you're going to find more often than not people will choose 3 or 6. And the last thing I like to talk about is, of course, our companion package. As I stated before, the plug-in is an add-on option as far as I'm concerned. I want to focus the best SCENTSY experience possible with my customers. Therefore, when someone's at my table and I'll say, are you familiar with SCENTSY? And they'll say yes or no. And they say, oh, you know, I've been thinking about getting one, or my sister uses these, or whatever. I'm going to say, oh, great, let me tell you about our full-size warmers. They use a 25-watt appliance bulb. You're going to put two cubes of wax in the warmer, and it's going to put off a really strong scent throw. You want to use this in the large part of your house. You're going to absolutely love it. By this time, she's looking at them. She's decided, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get one. Now I tell her, I tell you what, pick out which full-size warmer you want, and you get to pick out whatever 3 candle bars you would like. This is going to be your best value. So as she's sniffing away, and she's already told me which full-size warmer she wants, the next thing I'm going to tell her is, and for our starter package, it's really great. Now not only are you going to have a full-size warmer for the large part of your home, but you can add one of our plug-ins, and I point to my back behind my head. You can add a plug-in to that package, and now you're going to have the main part of your house covered and your bathroom covered, and you're going to have a great smelling house. And you can get that for $55 or $60, depending on which warmer they've picked out, is how I would then know which price to quote. So just some things to think about. And I hope that that has been helpful, and that you're going to find some tools and some things that you can use with that. And with that, I would like to close, and I wish you all the best with your SCENTSY.